Muriel Grant, also known as Simon Maguire, the American author, once wrote that there is nothing so patient, especially when searching for the host, like the virus. And then much earlier on, James Lovelock, the celebrated British scientist and the father of, the Gaia hypothesis that seeks to make people understand that the world is self-regulating, had said also that the most inefficient of viruses is the one that kills its host. And indeed, of course, he added by saying that the clever or the most clever of them is the one that stays with the host or in the host. This is not, by the way, my name is Yusuf Nadabo Suma, and the program is Reflections, reaching you from the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA. And today, or this week, we shall look at viruses, if you like, and virology from a prism of a person who has become a household name in disease and disease control and management in Nigeria and the world over. We'll get to meet him in a moment. My guest is a professor of virology who started from the university, rather the Ahmadu Bello University for his first degree, proceeded to the University of Ibadan, where he rose to the rank of a professor, and of course a professor in that very field we mentioned, virology. He is a researcher, of course, in diseases and disease control. When you talk about fevers, talking about yellow fever, you talk about Lassa fever, you talk about Ebola, and of course, when you talk about the current thing now, COVID-19, at least his name rings a bell in that. My guest tonight is the pioneer vice chancellor of the Redeemers University, and of course, he has carved for himself a niche in this very area, talking about virus and viruses, and of course, virology. My guest is Professor Oyewale Tomori. Welcome to Reflection, sir.
Thank you very much, Yusuf.
75 years. I'm talking to somebody who is at 75, really. I don't know whether there is something in the academics that makes people younger.
Yeah, sure. But I think everything, when you look at it, is actually the grace of God.
Right.
There's none of us, whatever you are today, you have to give him the glory. I know a lot of my colleagues who are not as sprightly as I am.
Right.
I also know others who are more sprightly than myself, And so, wherever you are, you give thanks to God for what he has done in your life.
But have there been any special thing you've been doing? You know, talking about exercises, talking about selecting what to eat and what not to eat.
Funny enough, I eat what I like. The only constraint that came was when I discovered some years ago that I was diabetic, and then I had to control.
Some years ago, really?
Yeah.
How many years ago?
About 2011. It was almost
about 10 years ago. Right.
I discovered that, but the evidence was there. I mean, each time I go for tests, they said you're on borderline, But it didn't make too much of a difference until one day I nearly collapsed.
Okay.
And then we checked and found that my blood sugar was like, oops, right in the sky. And since then, I've been managing that. I mean, that's the only thing I can say I've really gone to. Of course, like everybody, you want to do exercise, you want to do this, but consistency has been my major problem. When the time comes, I do walk around my village, the estate where we are, take a walk around there, but that's about all. My food, I just eat what I feel I like, and when you've grown up in Nigeria, growing up from the west to the delta to north, I eat anything that comes my way.
Even as being a diabetic now?
Yeah, I am, but I've put it under control. Like I said, I look at the food I eat. In those days, I used to drown gallons of Coca-Cola almost all over the place. Now, if I see Coca-Cola, I just
keep away.
I just stick to water now,
Right.
to to balance up whatever it is.
Okay.
So as you go, you see your life, and knowledge is important. If you have information, then you can plan based on the information rather than out of ignorance. I had an uncle who also was diabetic, but of course he didn't have the kind of information I have now. And then he died not quite,
Yeah.
And people should look at information in running their life. It helps and puts
That's
you
great
in the
for them.
position that you are.
Yeah, knowledge, education, especially for you, you people in the ivory tower, that's the material, that's the ingredient.
That's it.
It's
But
all about
sometimes
knowledge.
we have the education, but people don't make use of it. It's another thing,
Yeah.
You may have the knowledge. The wisdom comes from making use of the knowledge you have. A lot of people, I'm sorry to say, don't have the wisdom. They are full of knowledge, but not wisdom.
Is that a characteristic of today's world?
I think so. I
Because
think
I've been discussing with somebody about this. We say, look back 40, 50, 60 years, the kind of knowledge then was not as much as it is today.
all.
But unfortunately today, there seem to be so many negatives and so many drawbacks than when we look back 60 years ago.
Thank you very much for bringing that up. When I talk about Nigeria, I get very passionate. And I have a reason to be. I keep telling people that I owe this country more than I can ever pay back. And the reason for that is that I also use the word, I live in utopia, Nigeria.
Okay.
And you start asking me, what do you mean by utopia? But let me tell you a little bit of my history. When you are from a father who is not just polygamous, but multigamous.
Okay.
And he had like 18, 20 wives.
Yeah.
And when his first 4 or 5 children are older than your mother, we were not being bred for school. We were bred for the farm. Until good governments came. And during that time, I was in the old Western region. Obafemi Awolowo introduced free primary education. But he added one thing, compulsory.
Okay.
That made a difference. Because left to my father's choice, he would probably have kept me in farm than send me to school. But if he had to go to prison for not taking me to school, of course, he pushed all of us to school. But from that place in my Elisha where I was there, I passed to a secondary school way out, well, it was the whole of Western region then. That's from Elisha. And then I went to government college at Ugeli. People say federal government. There was no federal government college then. This was government college Ugeli, like government college Ibadan, government college Umuahia, the Barewa, what is now the Barewa college in the north. All those are the kind of things. But then at that time, to take exam in Elisha and be admitted to a school in Delta, which is now Delta, and to travel without anybody following you, they just put you with the Ames transport, a 2-day journey,
And there you go.
and get you to the school. Then that was when I say Utopia Nigeria, what I'm talking. From scholarship in primary to scholarship in secondary to scholarship in ABU.
University.
What else could I ask for from your country?
No.
And this is the reason. Generation of nowadays are not. I'm passing this information to the people in government now. There was good governance, and that made a lot of difference. The pride we have in our country today is because of that. And so all we're asking, this generation, you are talking about knowledge, they're so soaked in knowledge. They're more smarter than my generation. Give them half of the enabling environment I had. This country will be #1 in the world. And that's the message I think we want to pass to our leaders. Good governance.
People want to know who Professor Oyewale Tomori is.
I was born in Elisha, as you mentioned. Elisha was part of the old Western region. There were only 3 regions, West, East, and North. So I was in Elisha where I was born. And I had my primary education there at Elisha. But it was from there I passed an exam. Actually, I took the exam to Government College Ibadan. But somehow, watch of nature, and I always believe that God has been guiding my life without my knowing. So from Ibadan, I ended up in Ugiri, which was unheard of at that time, because it was way out of your direction. Nobody really goes outside of the circle of his area. I actually passed to Elisha Grammar School, but somehow I had a brother who had been at Government College. And I thought, that's the place I want to go, not Government College. Incidentally, I had to go back to primary school after my first leaving certificate to be able to sit the exam to Government College.
Okay.
However, within that first month of my back in primary school, I got a letter to go to Oyewale. How it happened, I still can't figure out. But then I went to Oyewale.
Right.
And during that period, we could travel anywhere. There was a fantastic travel system at that time. Ames Transport will leave Lagos at 8 o'clock, be in Ibadan by 10, at least at 12. we've been in a place we call Agbanikaka, where we eat our dinner and then sleep in Benin. The same morning they take you down to Oyewale. And that was one, like I said, nobody followed us. That was the security, the safety of the country that we're in at that time. And then from then, I wanted to do medicine, human medicine.
That was what you wanted to
That's
study?
what I had in mind.
All right.
Because I did, again, the creation of Midwest out of West created a problem also for the secondary school where I was. Because then everybody who was from the, quote, Yoruba West was moved out of Ugeli to Government College Ibadan.
Okay.
And so in my last year in HSC, I didn't really have a teacher to teach me. We actually studied on our own.
Okay.
So at the end of it all, my HSC result was nothing to really write to me about. I think I got the last of the passes, except in one other subject. That didn't make it easy. I mean, that of course made it not really easy for me to get into a medical school. But I got a scholarship for medicine. So I thought hanging on to that scholarship with my whatever, I would get admission the following year, which I didn't get. And it was in between. At that time, you apply yourself directly to the university you want.
Yeah.
So I then applied to, vet medicine is the closest thing at that time. And Ibadan was running vet medicine course. ABU was running vet medicine course. But Ibadan was not completing the vet medicine course. So the Ibadan graduates for the clinical years had to go to ABU. Okay. So it was like, why would I, if I'm still going to end up in ABU, why don't I just go to ABU from it? And that's how we went there. Right. And at that time, I mean, we talk about Nigeria. I remember arriving ABU September 1966.
Okay.
10 days after, some of the problems we had in Nigeria started, right on the campus of the, and many of my colleagues went back to the south. But somehow it was like, I'm not going anywhere.
Oh, you stayed back?
So I stayed on. And I'm glad I did. Because then the 5 years I spent in ABU was something I'm always be proud of. I got fantastic teachers. They took us through all of this. One thing about veterinary medicine, which a lot of people don't know, that ability to observe, that ability to do research is one of the trainings in veterinary medicine. Let me give you an example. A dog comes in, he cannot tell you I have belly ache. Yeah. He cannot tell you I have toothache. You have to be able to,
anyway.
Yeah, you sick, you look at it, you have that power observation comes in straight away, and that you carry out through the rest of your life and makes it easier for you in any area where you are to become what it is. So after ABU, and then it was like with a federal scholarship, I had a choice of either working in VOM at the National Veterinary Research Institute in VOM, or there was a time you had the NITA, Nigeria Trypanosoma Research in Kaduna. But having gone around the country, I really wanted to go home, to work or something. So I went back to the West. Unfortunately, I got in there, and they told me there was no vacancy, But let me beat back a bit. 1969, Lassa fever broke out in Nigeria.
Okay.
The team then there was another outbreak in 1970. The team that investigated that was the American group at the Rockefeller Foundation lab in Ibadan. The veterinary school where I went to was also a USAID project. So the Americans, whenever they come, they visit each other. So these guys, on their way back from Jos at that time, investigating the Lassa fever epidemic, stopped by in the department at ABU. My class was doing virology. So my boss, the teacher, invited them to come and talk to my class. Okay. And they told us. So when he finished, he then said, who would like to work with us? Of course, nobody raised up his hand. But I was the class representative at that time. Okay. And my attitude was, this man, let him just go. Who wants to work with me? I'm a vet. So I raised up my hand.
You raised your hand.
And then he said, when are you finishing? I still had 1.5 years to go at that time. Then they said, okay, when you finish, come and see us. And I promptly forgot. I mean, because 1.5 years, I wasn't planning to go into medical something. And I made up my mind, I'm going to work in veterinary medicine, set up a ranch, have my chicken, poultry, all those type of things. Then I went to Ibadan, my state, and they said there was no vacancy for me. So on our way back, the where the Rockefeller lab was on the way to where I was living. And I just, let me stop by with this plan and say hello. As soon as I got in there, the guy said, are you ready to start? And I'm saying, you still remembers me? And he said, oh yes, I've been following up with the teachers about you. Okay. So, right there and then, I started work.
Okay.
But this was attached to a human medical center. And here was I, a veterinarian.
From that background.
At that time, we were not, now the professions are better. At that time, it was like, you are a vet, I'm a human being, what are you doing in my territory? And I remember some of the things they said about
Get to your animal farm and leave us.
Yeah, exactly. This is not a veterinary clinic. We're not treating goats and sheep here.
Right.
But when I said God was guiding me, you know your focus. And I got into that place. We started doing research. And I got in 71. Within 10 years, I became a professor. Sitting on those people who say, go to your veterinary clinic. So that had been the thing. I think when I look at my training as a veterinarian and bringing me into that place, it made it so easy for me to go into research and excel by the grace of God in what I did. So that was them. Thereafter, I stayed in Ibadan for about 26, 27 years and then worked with WHO because of I was now dealing with human diseases. Lassa fever, yellow fever, all those things that you mentioned. And so, and then polio. And then I then got a job with WHO. It was supposed to be a 1-year assignment, but it ended up in 10 years. It could have been longer than that, but it was like, you know, I got a call to come back home. And something I've been very passionate about, getting for the future generation to be better than my generation. So when the Redeemed Church, the General Overseer, offered me to come and be the first pioneer Vice Chancellor, I took it. I still had about 6-7 years to finish at WHO. But one other thing I think I need to let people know.
Yeah.
When you get an international job, it's like that is the end of it all, the epitome of it. When you compare the salary you get from what Nigeria is paying.
From whichever angle you look at it, international is just the end of it.
Exactly.
From where we're next.
Exactly.
There wouldn't be any other place anyway.
So they called me back home. And it was a lot of people said, what are you going to do at home? Why are you listening? But let me say it openly now.
Right.
My job as Vice Chancellor, I was receiving better remuneration than when I was with WHO.
Ah.
I mean, a lot of people won't believe that. And these are the messages we need to tell our people.
Okay.
We need to begin to inform them.
But one should ask, how come?
Yeah, let me put it this way. At WHO, you are there. You buy your car, you whatever. You buy your food, you rent your house. Nobody gives you anything.
But they monetize all this thing for you anyway.
Sorry?
They monetize all these things for you.
Yeah, they do. But then you come back home and you also look at the one that is not monetized and the one that is monetized. Okay. I mean, because I'm a researcher, I sit down and I calculate all those things. And I'm telling you, because I'm the one, that it was, my remuneration-wise, it was better for me coming here as a Vice Chancellor than my job as a WHO. Okay. A lot of people won't believe it, but if they think seriously, they will know. Okay. Let me give you one little example, which brands that out.
Go ahead.
Take one good example. There was a day I was supposed to travel from Geneva to join at Amsterdam to Nigeria. I think I overslept that day. So I missed my first flight, which would have meant that I would have missed the connection flight. So while I was discussing with the agent, we then said, it's going to cost, the only vacancy available is a business class something, and this is what it's going to cost you. But as she was talking, she then said, but you have these miles that have accumulated over the years. What are you doing with 600,000 miles? Let me buy you a business class ticket from this. And you still have another 15,000. I mean, it's only 15,000. You still have another 500 and something thousand miles.
More.
So that's how, so when I sit down and I look at that, and I'm saying that is money, whether you like it or not. Out of the extra miles, I remember I brought my mother-in-law on business class to meet us in Harare when we were there. But if you don't count that, it's my money now. Yeah. Whatever it is. These are benefits that come, and that when people sit down and do the proper calculation, you find that it's not just the figures. There are many, many things which, if you add up, you really be glad that you did it. I'm very glad that I came back to Nigeria. I was.
Lassa fever. Lassa is in Borno State.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to know what's the connection between Lassa town in Borno State and fever, a human sickness.
Good. In those days, in the virology, wherever you isolate or wherever the first case occurs, or where you make the first isolation, is named after the town. That was in those days. But again, Lassa problem and others changed that. And now we don't name viruses after towns or something. You may name it after a river that spreads through so many countries or something of that nature. But in those days, the first case of Lassa fever actually occurred in Lassa. Okay. And so that was the Church of Brethren hospital that was based in Lassa. That was the first case of a nurse that got infected. That nurse was then brought down to Jos because of the religious connection. The hospital in Jos was better than the one in Lassa. So she was brought down eventually she died. Also in the process, a lot of people also got infected, in Jos, and that's how the story of Lassa escalated. So it became Lassa virus because of the first place where the first case was found.
Okay.
Evidence now shows that way back in the 50s and 60s, 40s, there have been people who had Lassa fever, but nobody, was able to prove conclusively.
There was no true diagnosis then.
Exactly. But we went back and took the samples of missionaries that have been here since 1952 and found that they have antibodies to Lassa. So they must have gotten infected. But unfortunately, there was no evidence at that time. So Lassa fever will probably remain the name forever, unfortunately. And I know this, but then it's also, if anything, it stimulated the idea that we don't keep naming viruses after your location. One particular good example, there's a tourist center in Australia where they got a virus, and they named the virus after that. That was the end of the tourist industry.
Oh my God.
So all these are factors. We then said, look, we can't be naming things after, the viruses don't have a good name. They are all causing disease and all that. If it's a good thing, then you can name it after me, but not,
You wanted to be a medical doctor,
Yeah.
and there you are now becoming a veterinary doctor. What was it that pushed you into thinking that you want to be a medical doctor in the first place? I mean, I'm just asking this against the background of the fact that those watching will now have a prompt into what they want to become and why they want to become what they want to become.
Okay. In our time, we didn't have any counseling and guidance.
Yeah.
Sometimes you look up to your elder brother. If your brother went to school, you want to be like him. I mentioned the fact that I passed to Elisha Grammar School, but because my brother was in government college, I liked, I wanted to follow him. So that was, you can't call him my guidance and counseling, but that was the focus of my. When I got into secondary school, by the grace of God, I actually enjoyed all of the subjects. I actually dreamt of becoming a lawyer. I wanted to become a journalist. I wanted to become an engineer because my brother was an engineer. But somewhere along the line, as you grow older, you begin to see what areas your strengths are, and then you move into that. So that's why. So generally, when you look at medicine, veterinary medicine, microbiology, they're all in the same category. Zoology, botany. So once you do that, that opens the door for you. How I got into veterinary medicine, like I said, when I said, sometimes God is guiding your life. You don't know. You think you are the smart one that is taking decision. To me, I think it was just, most of this was just things that happened along the line. It wasn't as if I deliberately planned that I was going to do this, I was going to do that. But things came and circumstances made it, and that was why. Me having a scholarship for medicine and not getting admitted for medicine, I don't think there was nothing I could do about that, But I ended up where I wanted.
Right.
Staying in ABU or going to Zaria was simple. I was staying in Ibadan. When I knew I was still going to back to Zaria, it was a matter of thinking. But over the line, I think that ability to think, inquisitiveness, we all children are inquisitive. I did get into a little bit of scrape when I was in secondary school because we were always looking into what is not our business, But then, again, I went through secondary school, went through university, not because I was quite gentle, but I really ran into a lot of scrapes, but somehow I clearly use the word divine intervention. I probably would have been expelled from either my secondary school or from my university for some of the student activities. But here we are today. I didn't get expelled.
But were you part of the student union government there?
I was.
You were an activist? Really?
I was a kingmaker. Let me put it that way. We are Nigerians. Let's talk about our country. ABU then, at that time, close to 60% of the students were from the north. You'll be surprised. Kwara was part of the north. So let me actually say close to 50% of the students were from Kwara State. And they always regarded themselves as the north. There was no way I knew if I'd done any election in ABU, I would have won. Because the northern group, they had a reason to vote for a northerner. And the reason, I'll tell you why. The scholarship that Northern State was giving, we used to call it Bulgaria then, was like twice what Federal was giving. Okay. So these guys were super rich.
Right.
And you need somebody who could link with Northern State. You bring a southerner like myself to go and start talking with they're probably not going to me. So they were protecting their scholarship and all that. So I knew no matter what I did, I cannot win an election there. So I opted to be a kingmaker.
Kingmaker, right.
By that I mean, people will come and ask me, are you running? Of course, I said, no, I'm not running. do you support me? And so that was why I said I became a kingmaker. I was in the student union assembly, but not any officer of the union.
Okay.
But it was fun for me. I quite enjoyed being a kingmaker, you know, and being the one. A few of my colleagues who got into scrape, when we were looking for people to expel in ABU, it was the student union official. So I guess maybe if I made one of them, I probably would have gone earlier on. So me, I was happy with my kingmaker position.
Yeah, okay, and you enjoyed that all through.
Yeah, I did.
Maybe
I
that
did.
saved you a lot anyway.
I think it did. It certainly did.
Had it been maybe somebody who had taken portfolio or whatever,
Oh,
maybe
boy.
something could have happened.
No, I know 3 or 4 of our colleagues who were expelled, you know, as student union officials. The story will never be out now, but I will tell the story today because it's a very interesting story.
Right.
You know, student demonstration, you go for breakfast and then you go and demonstrate. When the lunch comes, hunger will not let you continue your demonstration. So the university was used to strikes finishing at lunchtime. So we said, no, this is not going to happen this way.
Okay.
So the inner caucus met with the student union and said, look, let's buy food, buy bread, buy sardine, buy drinks, so that when we come for this, we won't eat the university food, we eat our food. And then we continue the strike, which was what we did. So the university was shocked that, you know, the strike
They were
didn't
thinking you
end
were
with
going
lunch.
to, yeah.
They end with lunch. So of course they brought the policemen to drive all of us out. And again, the investigation there came about. How did they get the food? And we discovered it was taken from student union funds.
Okay.
And of course they then charged them for misusing student union funds.
The officials.
Yeah, the officials. Unfortunately, or fortunately for us, we were the behind the scene perpetrators, and you know, so our name never showed up, except for the union officer, the senior, the man who went and took the money, the one who distributed, and all that. So they got expelled, which I'm sorry about. Eventually, they all made it eventually, but at least it stopped them for a year. So I'm sure a lot of students, you know, ABU students will not know what happened that year, you know. But today you are hearing what happened, how some of those people got expelled, you know.
Okay. Now, if truly speaking, as you said much earlier in the program at the beginning, that you travel all over Nigeria safely at night, daytime, and nothing, the world was very safe, and the world was on a level playground, I must say, as we used to say today. The world was level. And there was great honesty then. There was serious sincerity too.
You're right.
And people were really their brother's keeper, I would say too.
Sure.
And here we are today. Things have, you know, been turned more or less upside down. Most of these values have become debased, and most people don't really think about them now. As somebody who has gone up through this and now watching from inside to outside to everywhere else, how do you feel about this today?
I feel very sad about it. As much as I'm proud of my country, I'm not happy with what is going on. And the reason why I'm passionate is for us to go back to those good standards of the day, where you can travel safely, can go anywhere. One thing I never said, that the money that they gave us for food in those days was given to the driver of the Ames bus, who, when we stopped at Banikaka, bought the food. If there was anything extra, on his way back, he gave it back to our parents. That was the kind of honesty we grew up with. And I remember in my growing up days, they would tell you, our family, we don't do this. Our family, we don't do this. But we, unfortunately, it's my own generation that actually lost that. In an attempt to say we didn't want our children to suffer. I mean, we are counting all those things in those days as suffering. It wasn't suffering.
It wasn't.
But you know, oh no, my children must not go through shoeless to this one, must buy him 10 shoes to go to 1 kilometer. I mean, the guy walks, when some of us were walking from primary school, it was like almost 1 mile or 2 miles a day. Every day, go back and forth. Now, your child is going from inside your bedroom to his toilet. You bring a car to take him there. That's the kind of situation we've gone into. So I think part of it also is also that we ourselves did not continue the kind of discipline we had in our time and transfer it to our children. And I think we are paying for that now. I think that whether people like it or not, they say this thing. Charity begins at home. Training begins at home, not at the university, not at the secondary school. I mean, I'm not saying that we're all excellent in those days, but there was something imbibing you. My family cannot be involved in this. I don't want to hear that I'm a thief. In those days, if a policeman came, or your relation, came in uniform to your house, the other people are asking, has he offended? Because that's the way, you don't see policemen in uniform in people's houses, except when there's a trouble. So that was the kind of thing we grew up with. But then Western culture came, and I think we made a mistake. We should have been anchored on those good things in our society, so that we not be swayed up and down by the Western culture. They themselves don't even know what they're doing, and we're following them. This thing. Take the issue of the COVID-16 we're talking about, COVID-19 we're talking about. You remember when they started? Some of those big guests and things were saying everybody was going to die in Africa. 10 million people were listening. But they were speaking out of ignorance. They didn't know what we were talking about. COVID-19 was new to everybody. But because we don't sit down and think and say, well, this was saying this one, they didn't even have information. Because it was said, oh, we started quarreling with them. We should have known that these people didn't know anything about COVID-19. I didn't know about COVID-19. So we're all learning. So why should I listen to two blind people leading each other? That was the problem. And I think we need to change our orientation. It's not everything that is coming from the West that is good. There are a lot of good things in this country.
When you said you were from a very not polygamous, but multigamous, family, it sort of struck a chord in me. I wanted to ask you really, multigamous. Yeah. How many wives were there to make up or get out of the polygamous cycle into the multigamous cycle to which you belong?
I had a fantastic family, let me just put it that way. I think because we had a father, he never talked much, but he commanded respect. Of all the wives he had, the ones I know, because some of them came before I was born, some even didn't live in the house with us. I could count at least anything between 15 to 18.
Wives?
Yes. And I did mention to you that some of those wives were older than my own mother. And so, you can see the gap we're talking about. But the good thing...
What about the children? How many of you were?
We were in about 50-something, if I remember. Of course, there was a lot of child mortality in those days. Right. If you're talking about the number that were born, we'd probably be close to 70, 80. But a lot of them died because of one disease or the other. But the rest of us that stayed, there was one good thing about the family. And that's how I said, education and charity begins at home. We took care of ourselves. It doesn't make a difference whether I'm from this mother or from that mother. We're all taken together. The boys, when they were about the age of 8 or 9, we moved into what they call the boys' quarters, the boys' apartment. And we lived together, not knowing whether it's your mother or my mother. Of course, the girls stayed with their mothers. But with the boys, and there are not that many girls we had in my family. We quite a lot of, almost like 3 to 1, or even more than like 4 to 1 in terms of girls versus boys. But we all lived together. One thing that I think I like very much about it is that every evening we all ate together. And the 3 wives would pound yam, and we used to have a big tray, wooden tray, and they put mounds of pounded yam for the number of children in the house. So you go there and collect your own mound. We weren't using plates, we were using our fingers. Right. You put your mound on, they get this ladu or whatever spoon, they press the pounded yam in the middle and pour the soup inside.
Okay. So
and you ate from standing.
Okay.
You learn to eat standing because there was competition all around.
Right, okay.
Nice competition. If you are slow, like whatever you did, and somebody who feels like it doesn't like your being slow can come and slash your foot for you, But I mean, we fight and run after each other, right. But then there was a family.
Well, in case you are just joining us, we're reaching you from the Nigerian Television Authority, and the program is Reflections. You're welcome back. Before the break, it just occurred to me that I need to ask you this. When you said you are a Nigerian first and foremost, and of course you're proud of this country, you've gone up north, most of your friends are from there, Zaria, Ughelli, down Midwest, and then from your own area there, at least you're a true Nigerian. There wasn't so much suspicion, there wasn't so much, looking down on anybody anywhere. There wasn't so much of religious differences per se. Everybody does his own thing the way he wants it, at least within that very family circling code. So that is not the same today.
No. I don't know what happened that this country became what it is.
Yeah, I'm asking that because you should have seen how the transition, if it's a transition anyway, or the derailing, if it's a derailing anyway, happened. Because you are 75
Yeah,
years old. You
you
saw
know,
that. You are
yes,
seeing this now.
exactly. You know, I mentioned the fact that foundation is at home. A lot of the people you are talking about now who are in governance, how old are they? 40, 60, you know. It's not my generation.
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
so I think maybe, as I said, we, our generation, probably failed in not directing them along the line that we were brought up. To me, that was the beginning of some of our problems.
Okay.
You know, that kind of thing. Because when people say, oh, the elderly people, look at all the ministers, look at them, they're in their 50s. Some are 70s, I agree. The leader of, I remember one of the leaders of the National Assembly was 40-something. So the young people are the ones there. I mean, although they may start quarreling that they are not. You know, but the point is that what are they doing with what opportunity they have? They can't compare themselves in terms of issues of integrity, love for this country. That we have a lot of them in the National Assembly. They're there for themselves. What country will you have a person, senator twice, governor twice, back again as senator? Are you the only one in the country? These are issues we should be looking at. I call that greed. You know, this thing. I mean, they're not there for service. Many of them are there for what they can get out of the country. And that's where the problem is. The people of the old days served. They served their people. They were in service. They did it for the good of the environment where they are. We can't say that now. And I think part of it, like I said, I mentioned it, but perhaps we, our generation, failed in not imbibing that into. You may have a few families where their children are that, you know, but the majority, I think, we abandon that continuity of culture, of training, of charity beginning at home. And that's what we're reaping now, and we're seeing what we're seeing in our country.
That's unfortunate, really.
It is.
If you're asked to suggest how to get out of this, what would you say?
You see, for me, it's going back to basics.
Right.
Get back to the family tradition. Get back to the family where there are a few families who are still teaching their children do things right. And I'm glad there are a few of them. I mean, when some of my children talked about this, that we're glad you took us through this. We were not going to stand for what people are saying outside. And that's the same thing. Go back there into those families. Let's get back to the basic. And if we don't start it, we will never reach it. It may take a little longer now, but if you don't start, you will never get there. Okay. Maybe not for this generation, but this generation that will come after this one, these ones there should go back and see, what did our parents do that made us like this? And then move on to that and see how we can get through. So it begins at home.
All right. Now, this is talking about where the starting point at home. What is the position of the school system in trying to ameliorate this?
The school is to build on the foundation that is laid at home. But if the generation that is in school, either headmaster, parliamentarian, all those things are people without principles, the schools now cannot do anything. Okay. I attended a meeting where there was a conference in which the title was "The Church Transforming the Society." And I got up and I said, which church is transforming society? The society has already transformed the church. So what are you going to do? You can't transform what has transformed you. So we need to, people have to rise up. Okay. Take the current situation in Nigeria. I wonder why there are not many people who will come out. We say APC is not good. We say PDP is not good. What about the rest who are making all the noise that are not good? Can you do something new? And you may not get the result now because your people are still going along that line. It's a matter of time. Except you to agree to take over power today. You should plan for the future. These young people are coming with new parties. They shouldn't begin to think they're going to win next year. Get out the group of people who over the next 5-10 years will take over from the current situation that we have, you know. So it's not an immediate thing. We've been living all this decadence all these years. It's going to take a much longer time to even build that one. But it takes people to make up their mind. And people who are not saying, I want to gain from the outcome, but looking beyond themselves. That's the one, and that's why many of the so-called young political parties are not making any headway. You find that even some of them, they are fighting over how much you spend their assets and things. So there's no much difference between them. It's just name that they're young or something like that. But we need genuine people who will go out there and say, look, I'm not fighting for myself. I'm looking for the future of my country. And therefore, we need to begin this now. Recruit younger people. Bring them in and tell them, don't look forward to win the election in 2023 or 2020, whatever next it is. But make 10, 5, 15-year plan, and then gather them all together. You'll see the change that will occur in the country.
Do you really see what Professor Ali Mazrui calls the triple heritage as another problem in the African psyche, talking about the confusion in these three different cultures that have come in to stay with us and try to more or less take us away from our traditional local African black values?
It's our fault. You can say the same with China. They were also colonized. You can say the same of India. They were also colonized. They can say the same of Indonesia and Singapore. So if we all got and the cultures came to why did we lose our own?
Okay.
Why didn't they lose their own? Now we're running after China. Now we're running after India. But that culture stayed on. And it is until you have family ground in your culture. I use the word that when the wind of other cultures comes, it sways you there and there. You have no direction. Okay. And so that anchor must be there. And like I said, there are a lot of good things in our culture, whether we like it or not. We should hold on to those ones.
All right.
We should hold on to those ones.
Okay. Prof, let's talk about virology.
Okay.
At least for the remaining part of this program.
All right.
Nigeria is more or less a polio-free country now.
Yes.
And you've been at the center of this from the beginning to where we are and where we started saying, hooray, we are almost out of it, if you're not completely out of it. Tell us, how tough has it been with eradicating polio in Nigeria?
I'm glad you said that because it was tough. Actually, I became the chairman of the expert review committee in 2004. We didn't get polio eradicated in 2020, last year, which was almost 16 years. But we had to fight so many things. We had to fight you remember in 2003, there was this thing about boycotting of the vaccine and all that. That was one issue that came up. There's also the fact that when they're doing something for the people, they should ask the people what they want. Not just wake up and sit down. Not sit down in Abuja and decide that this is what is good for you. Take the issue of COVID. I keep telling, but
I was about to ask you this because there's a correlation between COVID public perception.
Exactly.
At that time of polio and of course COVID-19.
Fantastic. The error we make is that it's the government that is controlling COVID. It's not the government. It's not. It's me and you. And what do I mean by that? When the government says non-pharmaceutical interventions, the COVID virus is like your mobile phone. Where you put the mobile phone, that's where it becomes immobile. It's only mobile because you carry it around. It's on its own. It's not the mobile phone.
Yeah.
Same thing with the virus. If I get it, you quoted something today that the white virus is the one that manages to stay with its own people, not the one that kills the people. So long as that virus is within me and I don't transmit it to you, that's the end of the virus. And that's the end of the story. But when we break the rules and say, don't go into this place, wear your mask, do that, do all those kind of things, we refuse. We are helping and aiding the virus to spread. We need that information to our people that you are the most important person in the control of COVID, not Mustafa. Not Boss Mustafa, not the PTF. It is you, it is me, where we go. And then we need to bring out to the people that they are equally as important in disease control as the government is.
But Prof, the public perception from the beginning
is
that it doesn't really even exist.
Good.
And some still hang on to that to date.
When I started, I said all of us, Western world, everybody, we're living in ignorance. In Europe, again, there are factors. I was talking about diabetes when we started talking. I changed my diet because of that one. The diabetes, old age, hypertension. There are a lot of older people in Europe than we have in Africa. If you look at the population pyramid, in Europe, it's upside down because the older people are at the top. In our own, it's a solid pyramid. The younger people are at the bottom. COVID is killing the older people who have comorbidities. But it doesn't mean it's not affecting all of us. So when we saw that everybody was dying in Europe and we're not dying here, we say, there's nothing. We have it. It's just that the majority of our young people are carrying it, they call it asymptomatic.
Okay.
But they are more dangerous than the one that dies Because they don't know they have. It's like HIV. If you don't know you have it, you can pass it on to other people.
Spread it.
Yeah. So also with the young people who are all over the whole place, who are asymptomatic, we are looking at the danger of COVID by the number of people dying. But we're not looking at the number of people who are sick, who can go to work, who can do all those type of things. So that's the error we made. And then assume that COVID is not a problem. It is a problem. Okay. I mean, we saw the waves when they're coming.
Yeah.
And so the thing is that, and this is where the government and others should have come out openly and say, look, don't believe all this. I mean, everybody at that time was what they know. The symptoms of COVID, when it started in Wuhan in 2019, is not the same thing we're talking about today.
Yeah.
This is an elusive, evasive virus, very smart virus that comes in and adapts to make sure that it continues to survive.
Smart virus.
Yeah, that's the word.
Smart virus.
Yeah, it's a very smart virus. And what it means that, so when you come in and I have a little bit of antibody, instead of letting your antibody kill the virus finds a way of adapting. So when I now transmit it to you, although you are vaccinated, because it's a new variant, your antibody is not as strong. But the good thing about your vaccination is that you are not going to end up in the hospital. You are not going to be very sick, but you'll be sick. So that's why we advise, get vaccinated. It will still infect you, but you're not going to end up dying. You're not going to end up in the hospital. And that's the advantage of the vaccine. A lot of times we ascribe to the vaccine what it's not supposed to do. Okay. Vaccine is to protect you internally. It does not stop your exposure. Okay. That's not, it's your business. It's not the business of the vaccine to stop exposure.
You still have to protect
so you have a role to play.
Yeah.
And the role is that I want to stop this virus from getting to you. So I wear mask, you wear mask. So all I get is within me. Maybe I survive, no problem. But then I don't transmit it to you. So that's where we are coming. And everybody has a role to play.
Let's round up on this polio thing. What's the status now?
The polio war is not over. We just won a battle. So long as there's polio in other parts of the world, Afghanistan, Pakistan, we are not free yet. Okay. If you go and look at the certificate that WHO gave us, it didn't actually say we are polio free.
What did it say?
It says Africa, including Nigeria, has successfully stopped the transmission of indigenous polio virus.
Indigenous polio virus.
So if Afghanistan's COVID comes in, the certificate is still valid. Sorry.
Afghanistan's polio.
Yeah, comes in here. The certificate is still valid. However, the reason why we're saying vaccinate your people is that just in case, because the world is one. Let me see how COVID came. The first one came from outside. Just in case COVID comes in, get your people protected. Although it says we are, quote, polio free, continue to vaccinate your people so that if anything by error comes in, your people are protected. And now, the issue of what we are going on now has been going on for quite a long time. And I think it is important for people to realize the reason why we are having what they call circulating vaccine-derived polio is the fact that if you don't get the proper immunity, if you don't get your immunity properly, the attenuated vaccine can still revert because your immunity. So it's not the fault of the virus. It's my fault for either I'm not fully vaccinated, I don't have enough immunity in my body, for all sorts of reasons. So we need to get that information to our people, vaccinate our people.
Professor Tomori, whenever I have the opportunity of talking to professors and researchers like this, I seldom skip this very aspect of my thinking, and that is talking about R&D, research and development. And of course, I sometimes add up with data. Okay, data management, research and development. I call it DMRD,
okay.
Data Management and Research Development.
Yes, exactly.
This is one of the problems you have in this country.
Sure. It's only now I think the TED Fund is coming up with something and say, look, we need a bill, we need something to anchor research and development in Nigeria. It's not that money, a lot of money is going into research, but it's not being used properly. Let me tell you one thing that really bothered me. TED Fund gave out a lot of money for research over COVID and things. One of the groups decided that, there's no way he can do that thing. He goes to Ghana to go and look for salt. Yet in Maiduguri and Ibadan, there are laboratories that have been in existence for the last 20 years, doing the things he went to look for in Ghana. We don't talk to each other. These are some of the things. back to the data you're talking about, you need to be meticulous with your data. You can't get all the data, but the data you get, make sure it is correct. I'll give you one good example. A lot of us were criticizing NCDC for the issue of the data. Today they say 200. Tomorrow is 1,000, that kind of thing. But if you give me a result today and say, 20 people are positive, did you collect all the samples the same day? Did you collect it 2 days ago, 3 days ago, 1 week ago? The date of that positive result is not the day you did the test. It was positive the day you collected that sample. Therefore, if you tell me 20 today, I should be able to disaggregate it and say 10 of these came yesterday, 2 came this day. That's the only name we can know. We were running after the epidemic with the results we were getting. And that's why we were lucky that COVID did not, in fact, there was one of our ministers who came in and said, COVID is killing people in Europe, it's not killing people in Nigeria, it is because of what the government is doing. I said, Honorable Minister, your first 2 things are correct, but that deduction is not correct. It is not because of what our government is doing, it's not because of what we are doing, it is because of what the virus itself is not doing. And if you don't understand that, you go under the wrong premise and begin to do this, and that's what is happening. Okay. When your data comes, you must get the data as quick, as much of it as you can get, to be able to do a proper analysis. You must do your analysis timely. Otherwise, if you not tell me, take the case of the variant, the Indian variant that eventually was discovered in Nigeria. The discovery didn't take place until almost 6-7 weeks after it arrived in Nigeria. By which time it has spread all over the place.
Yeah, sure.
So your system should be able to detect as quickly as possible so that you are following. Take the issue of people coming into the country on your arrival. They say go back after day 7 to go and get your testing. I'm sure they change it now. We had advice, collect those samples on arrival. Why? If 2,000 people come into the country and you now test me and only 10% are here, then you're only focusing on 10%. You're looking at 20 people. Then you have the capacity to monitor them. Are they in self-isolation? Do they do this one? All those kind of things. Now, 3,000 people come to the country today, and you say go into self-isolation. Who monitors their self-isolation?
Nobody. Who
is there to know? Some of them you call them, they are in the market the day you call them.
Yeah.
Those are issues. You know your capability, and you design a system that will make you cope with that. We're not doing that in the country, and we're not using data properly. We did an analysis of all this sort of thing and found that at a particular time, 60 to 70% of the people who came back to Nigeria did not go for the 7-day test. So we don't know whether they're having a problem. And if you are now, how do I trace the contact person of such a person? These are issues that we need to do. Attention to details. I think we have a little bit of problem with that. Maybe thinking is deeper and more consuming than just get up and go and do. But then if you don't do that, you create more problems for yourself, which you have to find the solution for later on.
Professor Oyewale Tomori, thank you so very much for appearing on Reflections. We haven't exhausted all the issues at the moment, but all the same, you've given us at least the better part of it. We should be glad you've done that to us. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, sir.
Thank you.
My very pleasure.
We are also very much glad, I must say, to you out there for being part of this program. You've come along. It's been a good discussion, I must say, with Professor Oyewale Tomori. Thank you so very much. It's our pleasure. We'll be back next week with another personality on Reflections. Until then, bye-bye.